A gaunt lamb with a twisted leg stands in golden sunset light. A humble shepherd's silhouette kneels beside it, while in the background, a well-dressed rancher walks away toward a massive modern farmhouse. That runt won't last the week. Put it down and be done with it, landowner James Blackwell barked, tapping his Italian leather boot impatiently against the barn floor. His ranch sprawled across 3,000 acres of Montana's finest grazing land. And to him, efficiency wasn't just a goal, it was religion. The spring lambing season had brought 78 new lambs to Blackwell Ranch. But this one, the smallest of triplets, had been born with a twisted back leg. It stumbled awkwardly in the straw, its bony frame shivering despite the warm May morning. "I've got investors flying in from Chicago this afternoon to discuss expanding the operation. Last thing I need is them seeing us wasting resources on defective livestock." Eli Carter, the ranch's head shepherd for 15 years, said nothing at first. His weathered hands gently stroked the lamb's trembling head. At 58, Eli had survived droughts, blizzards, and 3 different owners of this land. But Blackwell, who'd bought the ranch just 2 years ago, was different. A hedge fund manager turned gentleman farmer who saw the land as columns on a spreadsheet. "Sir, if you'll give me some time with her," Eli started. "Time is money, Carter," Blackwell cut him off. "And that thing is a liability. Either put it down by noon, or I'll have Rodriguez do it." Blackwell turned to leave, then paused. A thin smile crossed his face as he saw the attachment in the old shepherd's eyes. "Tell you what," he said with false generosity, "I'll sell it to you. $20. That's more than fair for meat that won't even fill a coyote's belly." Eli looked up, his sun-creased face betraying nothing. "I'll take her." "Your funeral," Blackwell chuckled. "But you're on your own time when you care for it. Your job is the productive livestock, understood?" Before you continue with this story, I want to ask, have you ever stood up for something when everyone else saw no value in it? Type compassion in the comments if you believe sometimes the things others discard are worth saving. After Blackwell left, Eli carefully lifted the trembling lamb. Its wool was patchy, revealing pink skin underneath, and its back leg bent at an unnatural angle. Most ranchers would agree with Blackwell's assessment. A lamb like this was rarely worth the effort. But as Eli looked into the animal's cloudy eyes, he saw something that Blackwell's spreadsheets couldn't quantify: a will to live. "Come on, little fighter," Eli whispered, tucking the lamb inside his worn canvas jacket. "Let's get you home." Eli's home was a small cabin on the edge of Blackwell's property, part of his compensation package from the previous owner. The cabin had been built in the 1930s and showed every year of its age, but Eli had made it comfortable with handcrafted furniture and shelves lined with dog-eared books on animal husbandry and Western history. That evening, as rain pattered against the tin roof, Eli fashioned a splint for the lamb's twisted leg using popsicle sticks and medical tape from his first aid kit. The lamb, a female he'd named Grace, accepted the bottle of formula he offered, drinking weakly at first, then with surprising vigor. "There you go," Eli encouraged, his rough voice softening. "One day at a time." Over the next few weeks, Eli fell into a grueling routine. He'd rise at 4 a.m., feed Grace, then work his regular 12-hour shift managing Blackwell's profitable flock. He'd return home exhausted, but immediately tend to Grace again, adjusting her splint, massaging her leg, and encouraging her first wobbly attempts to stand. His co-workers noticed the dark circles under his eyes. "You're killing yourself for that crippled thing," Rodriguez said one afternoon as they mended fencing. Blackwell was right. Some animals aren't meant to make it. Eli just shrugged. "Maybe. but it's not up to me to decide which ones deserve a chance. Word spread around the small ranching community. Eli became something of a local joke, the old fool spending his savings and sacrificing sleep for a lamb that would likely die anyway. One evening, returning home bone-tired, Eli found Blackwell's shiny black pickup parked outside his cabin. The owner was waiting on the porch, his expensive sunglasses pushed up on his head. "How's your investment working out?" Blackwell asked with mock interest. "She's improving," Eli answered simply, unlocking his door. Blackwell followed him inside uninvited, wrinkling his nose at the humble surroundings. In a pen made from an old playpen, Grace bleated a welcome. "Good God," Blackwell laughed. "You've got it living in your house like a pet?" "Until she's stronger," Eli explained, kneeling to check Grace's splint. The lamb nuzzled his hand in recognition. "Look, Carter," Blackwell's tone shifted to what he probably thought was compassionate. "I respect loyalty, but this obsession isn't healthy. You're exhausted. Rodriguez tells me you nearly fell asleep checking feed yesterday." "Won't happen again, sir. That's not the point. You're one of my best workers. I need you focused on the productive stock." Blackwell reached for his checkbook. "How about I buy back your little project? I'll give you $100. That's 5 times what you paid. Good business." Eli stood slowly, his knees cracking. "She's not for sale. If you're enjoying this story so far and cheering for little Grace, hit the like button right now. It helps more people find stories like this one." Blackwell's face hardened. "Don't be stupid, Eli. That animal will never produce quality wool with that patchy coat. It'll never breed with that deformity. It's worthless to this operation." "Not everything's worth can be measured by what it produces," Eli said quietly. "That's exactly how worth is measured in business," Blackwell snapped. "And this is a business, not a charity. I've got investors expecting returns." "Then I guess it's good she's not part of your business anymore," Eli replied, turning his attention back to Grace. Blackwell stormed out, slamming the cabin door hard enough to make the windows rattle. The next day, Eli found his work schedule had been changed. He was assigned the least desirable tasks, including mucking out the lambing pens and clearing drainage ditches. The other workers avoided him, afraid of being associated with someone clearly on Blackwell's bad side. All except for Sarah Jenkins, the ranch's young veterinarian, who stopped by his cabin one evening with antibiotics and proper medical tape. "Thought you could use these," she said, handing him the supplies. "The medical-grade stuff works better than the hardware store variety." "I appreciate it," Eli said, surprised by the gesture. "But won't you get in trouble?" Sarah shrugged, pushing her dark hair behind her ear. "Blackwell doesn't scare me. My contract is with the county extension office, not him directly." She knelt beside Grace, examining the splint with professional interest. "Not bad for amateur work. Mind if I take a look?" For the next hour, Sarah showed Eli how to properly set the leg and create a better splint. Unlike many vets who specialized in production animals, Sarah treated each one as a patient worthy of care. "She's actually healing well," Sarah observed. "The leg won't ever be perfect, but with regular therapy, she should be able to walk without pain." "That's all I'm hoping for," Eli said. Sarah visited regularly after that, bringing supplies and checking on Grace's progress. In time, Eli removed the splint completely. Grace's back leg remained slightly twisted, but she could stand and walk, awkwardly at first, then with growing confidence. By midsummer, the lamb had grown into a young sheep with an unusual gait, but remarkable determination. Her patchy wool had filled in somewhat, though it remained thinner than normal. What was most surprising, however, was her temperament. Unlike most sheep, which remained skittish around people, Grace followed Eli like a dog, responding to his voice and seeming to understand his commands. I'd love to know where our family is watching from today. Drop your name and your city or state in the comments. I read every single one. 6 months after Blackwell had written Grace off as worthless, the lamb had become Eli's constant companion. She would wait by the fence each evening for his return from work, bleating excitedly when she spotted him walking up the dirt road. Then came the August wildfire season. A combination of drought and lightning strikes had set the hills ablaze 20 miles west of the ranch. The local fire marshal assured residents that the fire breaks would hold, but as a precaution, Blackwell ordered all his valuable breeding stock moved to the eastern pastures. Eli worked tirelessly alongside the other hands, driving sheep to safety, checking fire updates on the radio, and preparing the ranch's emergency sprinkler systems. The winds had been unpredictable, shifting direction without warning. One particularly exhausting day, after 18 hours of fire preparation, Eli returned to his cabin to find a notice taped to his door. All personnel required to sleep in the bunkhouse until further notice for emergency response readiness. No exceptions. Eli quickly packed food and water for Grace, making sure she had enough for several days, then reluctantly left for the bunkhouse. That night, the winds shifted dramatically. What had been a distant threat suddenly became an immediate danger, as embers carried on 60 mm gusts ignited spot fires throughout the western edge of the ranch. The ranch hands were awakened by blaring alarms at 2 a.m. Blackwell was shouting orders, prioritizing the equipment barns and main house. Fire trucks from 3 counties converged on the property, but they were spread thin across multiple blazes. In the chaos, Eli realized with horror that the fire line was heading straight for his cabin. He sprinted toward his truck. "Carter, where the hell are you going?" Blackwell shouted after him. "Grace is still at my cabin. Forget the damn sheep. I need every hand protecting the breeding stock and equipment." But Eli was already driving, the truck bouncing violently over the rutted access road. As he crested the hill, his heart sank. The forest behind his cabin was already engulfed, and fingers of flame were reaching toward his roof. He skidded to a stop and ran inside, calling for Grace. The smoke was already thick, burning his eyes and throat. He found her huddled in the corner, trembling with fear. "Come on, girl," he coughed, trying to lead her outside. But Grace wouldn't move. The roar of the fire, the unfamiliar smell of smoke, it was too overwhelming. Eli had no choice but to lift her, all 60 pounds of her, into his arms. His back protested, but adrenaline gave him strength as he carried her toward the door. Just as they reached the porch, a burning pine tree crashed down, blocking their path to the truck. The heat was unbearable, singeing Eli's eyebrows and hair. He looked frantically for another escape route, but walls of flame surrounded them on 3 sides. The only option was the creek that ran behind the property, if they could reach it through the garden. Holding Grace tight against his chest, Eli ran, stumbling over garden tools and uneven ground. The smoke was so thick he could barely see, navigating more by memory than sight. Just as his lungs felt ready to burst, Eli's boots splashed into water. He waded in deeper, finally setting Grace down in the shallows while keeping a protective arm around her. The creek was low from the drought, but it offered some shelter from the surrounding inferno. For hours, they huddled there as the fire consumed Eli's cabin and everything he owned. By dawn, firefighters had managed to contain the main fire line, but it was too late for Eli's home. When it was finally safe to leave the creek, both man and sheep were soaked, exhausted, and covered in soot, but alive. They trudged back toward the ranch headquarters, Grace limping beside Eli, who was now homeless and possessionless, except for the clothes on his back and his waterlogged boots. The ranch was a scene of controlled chaos. Fire crews were still dousing hot spots, and the air hung heavy with smoke and ash. Several outbuildings had been lost, but the main house and breeding barns had been saved. Blackwell stood in the driveway, talking urgently with insurance adjusters and fire officials. When he spotted Eli, filthy, singed, and limping with Grace at his side, he broke away from the group. "Where the hell were you?" he demanded. "We needed every hand here." The south barn roof caught fire twice. Eli, too exhausted to argue, simply said, "My cabin burned down." "That's unfortunate," Blackwell said without sympathy. "But when I give an order during an emergency, I expect it to be followed, not abandoned for a crippled sheep." Something in Eli finally snapped. 15 years of loyal service, of pre-dawn mornings and midnight checks during lambing season, of missed holidays and back-breaking work, all dismissed because he'd chosen compassion over calculation. "That crippled sheep has more heart than most people I know," Eli said, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. "She survived because she's a fighter, and I survived because I went back for her." "What are you talking about?" Blackwell scoffed. "The fire jumped the creek downstream from my cabin," Eli explained. "If I hadn't gone back for Grace, I'd have been asleep in the bunkhouse when the evacuation order came. By then, the road to the western pastures was completely cut off by flames. 300 of your prize ewes would have been trapped." Blackwell stared, processing this information. The fire marshal nearby nodded in confirmation. "He's right," the marshal said. "That road became impassable around 3:15 a.m. Anyone trying to reach the western pastures after that would have driven straight into the worst of it." Sarah, the veterinarian, who had been treating minor burns on some of the livestock, approached with a blanket, wrapping it around Eli's shoulders. "You both need medical attention," she insisted, examining Grace's singed wool and Eli's reddened hands. "I'm fine," Eli said, though he swayed slightly from exhaustion. "The hell you are," Sarah replied. "You've got smoke inhalation and probable second-degree burns. Sit down before you fall down." As paramedics attended to Eli and Sarah examined Grace, Blackwell stood watching, his expression unreadable. The insurance adjusters were calling for his attention, but for once, the businessman seemed unsure of himself. Later that afternoon, after Eli had been treated at the local hospital and released, he returned to find Grace being pampered in the ranch's small veterinary clinic. Sarah had cleaned her up, treated her minor burns, and given her fresh water and hay. "She's quite the celebrity now," Sarah smiled. "Everyone's talking about the sheep that saved Blackwell Ranch." "She didn't do anything special," Eli said modestly. "Just survived, like she's been doing since the day she was born." "Sometimes surviving is the bravest thing we can do," Sarah replied. The door opened and Blackwell entered, looking uncomfortable in the small clinic space. He cleared his throat. "Carter, the fire marshal says we would have lost the entire western herd if not for the early warning you provided. That's over $500,000 in breeding stock." "I didn't do it for the money," Eli said simply. "I'm beginning to understand that," Blackwell admitted, looking at Grace with new eyes. "The insurance company is covering your cabin as part of the ranch policy. But until it's rebuilt, you'll need somewhere to stay." He held out a key. "There's a caretaker's apartment above the old barn. It's nothing fancy, but it's furnished." Eli accepted the key with a nod. "And," Blackwell continued, seeming to struggle with his next words, "I've been thinking about starting a farm therapy program. For veterans, troubled kids, that sort of thing. Good publicity, tax write-off. We'd need animals that are comfortable around people. Special animals." He glanced at Grace, who was watching him with her head tilted curiously. "Your sheep seems to have a knack for that. If you're interested in heading up such a program, it would come with a raise. And official pasture space for—" "What did you name her?" "Grace," Eli said, a smile finally breaking through his soot-stained face. Grace, Blackwell repeated. Appropriate. 5 years later, Blackwell Ranch became known for more than just its prize-winning wool and lamb. Its therapy program, officially named Grace's Flock, had helped dozens of veterans with PTSD, children with disabilities, and even corporate executives suffering from burnout. Grace, now a healthy adult sheep despite her permanent limp, had become the heart of the program. She had an uncanny ability to sense when someone was in emotional pain, often limping over to rest her head against them. Visitors to the ranch would marvel at how she followed Eli without a lead, responding to verbal commands like a well-trained border collie rather than a sheep. Blackwell himself had changed, too. The once ruthless businessman had discovered that some investments couldn't be measured in quarterly returns. The therapy program barely broke even financially, but the transformation he witnessed in participants, particularly in a group of foster children who visited monthly, had shifted something fundamental in his worldview. Eli, with gray now dominating his once salt-and-pepper hair, had gained a reputation throughout the state as a gifted animal trainer and compassionate mentor. The cabin that had burned down had been replaced with a larger, more comfortable home, where he and Sarah, now his wife of 3 years, lived with Grace and an ever-changing menagerie of animals in need of rehabilitation. On the anniversary of the fire each year, Blackwell would join Eli, Sarah, and Grace for a quiet dinner. It had become something of a tradition, a remembrance of the night when a discarded lamb had helped save not just a flock of sheep, but also had started the healing of a man who had forgotten that true value isn't always visible on a balance sheet. I was wrong about her, Blackwell admitted during one such dinner, watching Grace gently accept a carrot from a 7-year-old girl who had recently joined their therapy program. The child, who rarely spoke due to trauma, was whispering secrets into Grace's ear. You were wrong about worth, Eli corrected gently. Grace's worth was never in what she could produce or how perfectly she could walk. It was in her heart, in her will to live, and her capacity to connect. We just needed to give her the chance to show it. Blackwell nodded, watching the transformation on the little girl's face as Grace nuzzled her gently. The best investments, he said thoughtfully, are the ones that transform us in the process. If this story touched your heart today, share it with someone who might need a reminder that true worth isn't found in perfection or productivity, but in perseverance and compassion. Sometimes the things and people that the world dismisses as broken are actually just waiting for someone who sees their true value.